Guys, welcome back. It's been 7 months-ish, I think, since our last upload, but football starts on Thursday. We're stoked about it, and it's time to get some new episodes out. I'm here with Yanni, as always. How's it going, man?
I'm good, dude. I'm good.
We had a good draft today. That's
Yeah.
actually going to be out before this episode goes out on the channel. Yeah, without further ado, let's stop fucking around. Let's get into this. Yanni, I'll let you explain the layout because this is kind of your baby.
Yeah. So just some things you guys are going to be seeing this year. We're experimenting with having a more interesting deck. We're going to talk on top of all that good stuff. And then we're going to just give you guys the slides below the video. It's going to be in the description. And you guys can look through them at your own pace or whatever. They're also going to be edited in before we talk about each specific game. But just so you guys know what you're going to be looking at now through the end of the year. The figure next to the team is the Vegas implied team total from FanDuel Sportsbook. The parentheses number you're going to see next to some players is their half PPR ECR, expert consensus rankings, the aggregate of 250 experts ranking these players. If we're going to throw someone controversial somewhere as a start, sit as a tricky decision, we'll just give you guys the positional ranking and you can sort of evaluate it. And then STDs, sort of tricky decisions. These are guys that are going to be flex range or typically startable guys who are either starts you may want to think twice about or sits you may want to consider rolling. Just guys that we feel one way or another that may pull them up or down in a category they're in that week. So just so you guys know what you're looking at.
Yep, I'm sure that we're gonna have a lot of new viewers this year for sure.
Yeah.
Anyways, you want the honors or you want me to do it?
I'll do the first one, man. I'm excited about these teams.
All right, you got it.
Okay. Cowboys at the Eagles, really big game for a bunch of fantasy assets, going to sort of set the course of the year. Cowboys with an implied team total from Vegas of 20 points, Eagles with an implied team total of 27.5. The weather is not supposed to be great in Philadelphia for this game. I mean, it's still pretty early out, but that's what it's looking like. So that favors Philly on the ground. That's probably why Dallas is at a 20-point total. I don't think they're going to be implied that low for most of the year. For Dallas, I know you took Dak later in the drafts. I know it's a bad matchup. I know it's bad weather, but I mean, and this will probably be one of his lowest scoring games of the year. But with the way the defense looks, man, and they might have to pass it 40 times a game. The last fully healthy season Dak we got like mid 4,000s on passing yards, high 30s and passing touchdowns. We're kind of projecting Dak for that this year. I know me and Ted have been going really heavy on CeeDee Lamb, on George Pickens, and Dak Prescott's been one of my most favorite late round dart throws. So we're going to start him. We're going to start the whole pass catching core. I know the weather's not great. It is not an ideal way to start the season. Don't panic if it doesn't go great, but I don't think you can leave any of these guys on your bench right now. We're going to sit all the running backs from Dallas for now. Again, I know, me and Ted are probably 70, 80 drafts deep between the two of us, over 100 mock drafts deep. And we've both been taking a lot of Jaden Blue is the one I've seen us most be in on. But that's a later season thing, and I don't think you want Javonte against the Eagles. Jake Ferguson's the tight end 16 on the week. Not great. He's a sort of tricky decision. I think between the weather and the defense, you can probably find better options. But if you went with a zero tight end build and you really have to, at the minimum, the game script's going to be there for Jake, and I do think he'll have a nice year overall. For the Eagles, you're starting everyone in the sense of Hurts, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and Saquon, right? We're never going to tell you guys to sit those. The sort of weird one here is Goddard, Dallas Goddard, who's been banged up a little bit this month. He's not a full go quite yet. I believe he's still listed as questionable today. Um, Again, man, you did these two tight end builds, right? And I feel like if you did a two tight end build and you're playing one of the worst defenses in the sport in a game with a 47 and a half point total, you should probably roll Dallas Goddard. Maybe I'm being a little hypocritical there. I have a Loveland Goddard roster, and I'm gonna roll Loveland. Actually, I want to see what I have there. But generally speaking, dude, I think Goddard's gonna be a really safe play this year. Just a nice floor play that you're gonna roll out in favorable matchups, and this is one of them.
Yeah, I guess to speak to the Goddard piece, right? Like I view him as like a fringe startable tight end. I think that's gonna be matchup based for the most part. I do think that Jalen and the Eagles are gonna throw a little bit more this year than they did last year, right? They just rode Saquon to a Super Bowl. But I think that teams are gonna come out with that Kansas City Chiefs, Steelers game plan that we saw at the end of last year, where they're really, really trying to stop Saquon, which means Jalen Hurts, I think, as a result, is going to throw more, and I think he'll be pretty successful. So Goddard in a fairly concentrated offense should be good, but Eh, I mean, it's fine here because it's the Cowboys. It is projected to rain right now. I think it's like 55% chance of rain. If that happens, I don't think it's a huge deal. I guess if we're going to talk about the Cowboys, right, the Dak, CD, George Pickens thing, I'm extremely bullish on that entire pass catching group, like Yanni mentioned, right? Even George Pickens, he was someone I loved to make fun of last year when he was a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've always said with that player, it's not about his talent because he has all of the talent. It's about terrible quarterback play and just not being a polished product is why I was kind of fading him in situations. I think this is the perfect opportunity for him on a team like the Cowboys now that Micah Parsons is gone. They just have nothing on defense whatsoever. They're going to be bad this year, I think. Their defense is going to be terrible, and they're going to need to throw to catch up. Dak, I mean, they're paying him 60 a year. Jerry's going to get his money's worth. Tough start to the year, but I think going forward, you're going to be really happy with having those guys. All right, next one, and I think this is a Friday game, if I was reading the schedule
Yep.
correctly. We got the Kansas City Taylor Swifts going to SoFi to play the Chargers. The Chiefs have an implied team total of 24.5 points here, and the Chargers have an implied team total of 21 points. For the Chiefs, we're starting Pat Mahomes, Travis Swift, and Xavier Worthy in this one. We're gonna tricky decision Isaiah Pacheco, and then we're gonna sit the other pass catchers in Marquise Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster. Then for the Chargers, we're gonna fire up Omarion Hampton, exciting rookie. I know Yanni was very excited to get him in our draft, and Lad McConkey. Then we're gonna sit Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen in this one. So let's start with the Chargers first. We didn't put Najee Harris, aka Fetty Wap, on the slides because I don't think he's even fantasy relevant this particular week, but I think he's going to be a factor, but not as much as we thought early on when the Chargers drafted Hampton. So the way I see it, and I think the way Yanni sees it too, is that Hampton is going to be the lead back here in LA, and Najee's going to be a more complementary piece. And if you're a believer in the talent of Omarion Hampton, right, coming out of college, and you think he's going to get the majority of the work in a Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman high T run the ball offense, even though this is a bad matchup against Kansas City in theory, I would be hard pressed to sit that player. Then Lad McConkey, right? The superstar at the end of last year got vaulted up draft boards. Listen, it's kind of barren out there in LA right now from a wide receiver standpoint. They brought Keenan Allen to town to try and give Justin Herbert some help, but outside of Lad right now, no thank you in a tough defensive matchup against the Chiefs until proven otherwise. That's why we're sitting Herbert here. He's the ECR quarterback 14. I think that you're going to be able, if you did draft Justin Herbert, like is one of those rosters that punted quarterback, you're going to have plenty of opportunity to start him this year and have him be pretty good for you. We just prefer not to do it in this spot. It seems tough. And then Keenan Allen, he's still around. He's still around. It was a tough year last year in Chicago. Came back home to the Chargers where he was so good for so long. We're gonna sit him here because I feel like this is a show me first before we tell you to start him. But I'm pretty optimistic about the player and about the role, right? Like unless you think that Trey Harris or Quentin Johnston are going to be like the wide receiver two here. Like I think there's a very good chance Keenan Allen is the wide receiver two, like at a minimum in this offense and is very involved. He has chemistry with Herbert. They played before when he was in his prime. So we're going to sit him here, but we're going to be on STD or start watch for him. As for the Chiefs, this one it's interesting, right? Because I was very excited about seeing Rashi Rice and Xavier Worthy both in this offense with Patrick Mahomes. The NFL's finally come down with their 6 game suspension on Rasheed Rice. It's been accepted. They're negotiating right now, but that's what it's going to be. So Rashi is missing the first 6 weeks of the season. So basically, we kind of have the exact same Chiefs offense we had last year, where Patrick Mahomes like became a tricky decision. Like it was kind of hard to have startable guys on an offense that felt like should be better. But we're calling what happened last year with Pat Mahomes just kind of a weird off year, right? Like he was bottom 5 in like the deep ball. Like, are we betting that Patrick Mahomes is going to be bottom of the league in throwing the deep ball this year? I'm not personally. So even though it's a tough matchup against LA, we're going to start him here. and Xavier Worthy too, right? We saw the breakout near the end of last season. In the Super Bowl, he almost went for 200 yards. Little dude's a savage. I love the player. I think this is going to be a breakout year for him where he starts being comfortably in your wide receiver 1 or 2 spot. And then Travis Swift. I mean, I'm not really a believer in anyone else other than Worthy from the pass catching standpoint. And until Rashi comes back, I think that he's going to eat all those like underneath little short routes that he typically does. I think this is a nice little vintage Kelsey spot, at least for the first 6 weeks of the season while they need help. And then we're going to tricky decision Pacheco. I'm bullish on the player as a whole for the majority of this year. It's a tough matchup, and we haven't seen him play good since we didn't see him play well like all of last year. So I'd like to see vintage Isaiah Pacheco back. I'm not super enamored with the talent or anything. I think he runs like he's stomping the ground, like he's trying to hurt the ground when he runs. But if you're gonna be a featured back and you're gonna get the majority of the carries in an Andy Reid Chiefs offense, we think will be better. I think that's gonna be worth the start later. But for this one, we're just gonna kind of hold our horses and see. Any thoughts on this one?
No, no, I think Pacheco will be fine as the season goes on. But yeah, just again, a lot of you guys are going to start him, and that's perfectly fine. I just don't think this will be one of his better weeks of the year. All right, so Giants, my second team, and we are getting better, man. That's been my pet project for like 2 or 3 years now. It's been fun. Giants implied team total of 19.5, going to the Skins with an implied team total of 26 at home. One of the higher implied team totals of the week for the Skins, right? So for the Giants, and this will probably be just how it is for a little bit until we sort of get a feel for what they're doing. I think, you took Tyrone Tracy in Yahoo leagues. He was going at like the 6-7 turn. I don't think he's going below like the early eighth round in any cross-platform ADP. This is still a soft defense. It's not great. They did not do a ton to improve. And then Malik Neighbors, I don't really need to explain, right? But Tyrone Tracy, I think you can roll him out there this week with confidence, especially if you did your hero RB build or zero RB build. I would make sure he's in your RB2 spot for the week. And part of that is because Cam Scattaboo just isn't ready to start yet. I was loving some of the beat writers. I hadn't gotten a lot of Cam in my underdog drafts and in my first few redrafts, but I've been kind of circling back and hammering him a little bit. The beat seems to think that he will get the third down role and some goal line work. It's just a matter of when, not if. But for now, he's just simply not there. He's been hurt all summer, hurt his hamstring. So you're going to sit him. You're going to sit Wandale. You're going to sit Russell Wilson. Even in DFS, like don't get cute and throw a Russell roster out there. We do have a cool dart throw for you that's going to be cheaper if you want to try one on Sunday that's coming up. But for DFS, if you want a cheap tight end, you could do a lot worse than Theo Johnson, who sort of flashed a little bit last year. It just looks like his game's going to jive with Russell Wilson. I like keeping an eye on him, and if you want, like, he's probably going to be like $2,800 on DraftKings for the first week. I think you could do a lot worse. And same with Darius Slayton. Bad secondary, really high scoring, really good game script. Russell Wilson loves the moon ball. Darius Slayton has been one of, I believe it's Hayden Winks. It might be Josh Norris's favorite late round dart throws on underdog. He's was one of mine too. And it's for that reason. And this is the sort of game where you're going to see that. I think Darius Slayton is an excellent, excellent dirt cheap DFS throw this week. And then for the Skins, it does hurt our feelings to put them on there. Their new weapon, Debo Samuel. They actually didn't do as much on offense to improve as I thought they would have. I was kind of surprised with the way they went into this offseason. Like they were good on offense. I would have tried to give Jaden far more weapons. He did get Terry re-signed, which is great, and they did go get Debo Samuel. It looks like Debo's going to work a little bit out of the backfield, a little bit out of the screen game, what he did in San Francisco. I think Cliff's going to use him for a lot of that. Will his body hold up to it? Can he still do what he used to do? I'm not sure, but they're going to try it at least for the first few weeks. And while Debo's out there, I think he's going to be good, unless he picks up some string of injuries like he has been doing. So you're going to start Jaden, Terry, Debo. No sits for them, but tricky decision. Zach Ertz. I mean, Zach Ertz was a pretty serviceable tight end last year. Those of you guys that picked him up late in underdog knew what you got out of him. He's going into the week as the tight end 19. I'm not sure, man. It's a pretty bad defense. They have a really good D line. They're probably going to short pass a lot. I don't see a lot of like 12 team or less rosters that are going to be starting Ertz, but if you really have to, that's fine. If you want another cheap DFS option, that's fine. And then Jaquaski Merritt, running back 33 on the week. And then Austin Eckler, running back 38 coming into the week. That's basically a reflection of the fact that consensus doesn't really know how this backfield is going to shake out. And then you're going to have Rodriguez working in on early downs. I'm not really sure either, to be honest with you. I've JCM got a little too expensive for me. So I've been sort of letting him go by. I did grab a share or two. I've been trying to pick at Eckler late when I can. Um, so we're just not sure. I don't know if I would rush to start one of those guys this week, especially where you got him. He's probably your RB 3 or 4, and same with Eckler. I'd probably just let him chill on your roster, let things go by, let things develop, see what it looks like. I will say against a D line like this, if JCM goes out there and pops, you may have really, really smashed an eighth to 10th round pick. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I think this Redskins rushing attack, right? There's going to be value here somewhere, whether or not it's Eckler or, for the record, he goes by Bill. We're going to call him Bill on the slides from now on. But Krosky Merritt or Christian Gonzalez, it's going to be, or Christian Rodriguez, sorry, it's going to be one of them. You shouldn't have, like, in your drafts, their ADP like is so low that you shouldn't be forced to put them in your lineup yet. So I would just kind of take the cautious approach week one, see how it looks, and go from there, right? Then for the Giants, there's not really much to say about them right now. In my opinion, I'm much more bullish on Tyrone Tracy than Yanni is. I think that it's his job until he loses it, which I mean, players do that all the time in the NFL, right? Like if he puts the ball on the ground a bunch, they drafted Cam Skattebo. Scat was sick at ASU. I think he's a good player and couldn't, he could command some playing time, but until further notice, I'm gonna roll Tracy out there as like a bell cow. And then the only other thing for the Giants, really, I think we're on Jackson Dart watch personally. Russell Wilson, one of my favorite players last year on the Pittsburgh Steelers. We never talked shit on that player at all on this channel, not once. I think it's just a matter of time with the direction of the franchise, how difficult their opening schedule is. Like, what are they, 7.5 point dogs here? I think it's probably worse than that. What's going to happen to them? And I think that Dart looks promising. So if you have a Malik Neighbors, if you have these other ancillary passing options like Darius Lee and Theo Johnson, I think if you can afford to keep them on your bench, even if they aren't good at first, I think they have a chance to come live a little bit later in the season when there's a quarterback change, whether or not that's Dart or Jameis too. Jameis is there. He's also been a fantasy god for us at points. But all right, I'm happy you chose the slides this way, Yanni, because now I get to talk about my second team, the Carolina Panthers, going to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. I feel like these are the two like worst hyped teams of all time. Like a lot of people have started to get on my Panthers bandwagon, and there's been a lot of people jumping on the Jags bandwagon this offseason. So I think this will be an exciting game between two young up and coming offenses and great offensive coaching too. The Panthers have an implied team total of 21.75 points, and the Jaguars have an implied team total of 24.75 points. For the Panthers, we are rolling out Bryce Young with full confidence as a start. Rolling out late round draft pick hero Chuba Hubbard, and then exciting new rookie Tet McMillan. One of us has 100% roster exposure to that player in 12 leagues. I'll let you guys guess who it is. Then we're going to sit all of the Panthers pass catches for now. Then for the Jags, we're going to start Trevor Lawrence here. Rough season for him last year, but more on that in a minute. We're going to start BTJ, and then we're going to start the NFL's Shohei Ohtani, Travis Hunter in this one. I know a lot of people are really excited to see what this looks like, and we are saying start him this week. We're going to sit Brenton Strange, and then we're going to tricky decision all of the Jacksonville running backs. And let's start with Jacksonville first because I think there's more to talk about here. Um, let's start with the backfield, I guess. Right now, Liam Cohen's come to town, who last season he was the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay, and he was really good at using multiple people in the backfield with Rashad White and Bucky Irving. They ran a ton of pony personnel. That's where there's two running backs in the backfield. They're both doing different things, and we have three running backs that are either rookies and promising or have done something at some point in the league in Travis Etienne, in Tank Bigsby, and then everyone's favorite sleeper, Baishal Tootin. I honestly could not tell you who is going to get the lion's share of the work here. I lean Etienne. I lean Etienne just because he's done more in the league, but I don't know. I would prefer to sit everyone this week and see what they look like. But if you're desperate, I guess I would roll ETN. But I think all three have a chance to be the guy here, and it's just a matter of waiting. For Trevor Lawrence, he was bad last year. There's no two ways about it. we're officially like on Trevor Lawrence bust watch. But the good news is they're playing the Carolina Panthers, who gave up the most points in NFL history last year and didn't really do anything to make their defense better. So if you drafted Trevor Lawrence, if you're bullish on this Jaguars new look offense, then you have to start him here. It's not going to get better than this from a matchup perspective, and that's why we have Travis Hunter there too. I am a big skeptic of what's going on. I feel like he's trying to do too much, playing defense as well as offense. But listen, man, he won the Heisman, second overall. The Jaguars jumped a bunch. They jumped three teams to get him. They passed up Ashton Genty to get him on their football team. So I don't think they're not going to use him, but I just don't know if the juice will be worth the squeeze. But for this one in this plus matchup, you probably drafted him in the fifth, sixth round. Fire him up. Then for the Panthers, this Jaguars pass defense was 31st in the league last year. So we're going to start Bryce, even though like he's had his bad moments, but near the end of last year, he really started playing better. There's finally some optimism about him potentially being. I don't ever see him making like that top of the line NFL money, but he could be like a solid starter. Like I think it's on the board. That's the case, right? That's why we're bullish on Tet McMillan here too. Absolute physical freak in college at Arizona. A lot of people are excited about him, myself included. And with Jalen Coker going on IR and Adam Thielen getting traded, he's one of the only options. It's going to be him and Leggett and Hunter Renfrow out there. And I like Tet a hell of a lot better than the other guys. So we're starting him. And then Chuba, I don't think we really have to say anything there. He's still a stud. He's coming back as the primary running back. I guess if you want to talk about it, like they brought in Rico Dowdle, who was nice last year for Dallas, but he basically they got him for free, basically. And what Dave Canales has said is he's just going to back up Chuba. So I would just treat him as a handcuff more than anything else. Anything you want to add on to this one?
I mean, I would say don't panic if you do see Rico Dowdle working a little bit. I think that's just has to be baked into the reason Chuba Hubbard was like a low end RB1 last year. The reason he's not going up with the Chase Browns and the Bucky Irvings of the world is because he's not going to get 100% of that workload. It just is what it is. Um, yeah, I mean, not a whole lot else. Obviously, I am super high on Ted McMillan. I don't have 100% roster exposure, but I do have, I think, over 9 redrafts. I have 7 Ted McMillan. I just keep hammering him anywhere from the mid fifth on. I think he's too cheap on Yahoo. So yeah, very excited though. Very excited to see. I don't know. I think these two franchises have a lot at stake. The two coaches were on the staff together in Tampa, right? They had to be. They didn't turn over the offensive staff, did they? So they like coached together for a while.
I don't know for sure, but I bet they did, right? Unless they brought in Cohen like exactly to replace Canales.
Yeah, it's sort of I don't remember well because I know Cohen is from the McVay tree. But anyway, yeah, just really excited to see the young guys get going. Okay, Steelers at Jets. Not so excited for this game. I don't imagine it's going to be the most explosive game, and neither does Vegas. They're giving the Steelers 2.5, 20-point implied team total. Going to the Jets with an implied team total of 17.5. Just brutal on all accounts, and brutal in terms of your fantasy options. The Jets are actually very easy. I imagine most of their things are going to look like this. Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson. I know it's not pretty. I know it's not special. I know we're not getting all these touchdowns, but absolutely in no world am I going to tell you guys to sit Brees Hall or Garrett Wilson until we get incredible evidence that shows you should not. I think Garrett Wilson's bear case this year is like he's a low end wide receiver too. Maybe he ends up somewhere between wide receiver 23 and 26 if things really go wrong. Last year with injuries, even with the relatively uninspiring points per game, he ended up as a wide receiver 1 at the wide receiver 12. So you're absolutely starting him. Brees Hall, again, until proven otherwise, Brees Hall's the starter here. We should have put him down here, but you're going to sit Braylon Allen. He is steamed all the way up. So on Underdog, I at one point had 47% exposure to Braylon Allen because he was going 150 to 170, and I just kept taking him there. He is steamed all the way up in redrafts and Underdog to like 80 to 90 now. So he's up 50 spots, and I don't know. His relative athletic score was not great. His efficiency metrics last year were not great. I know he was only 20 years old playing in the NFL, which is incredible, right? I don't, I'm going to need to see that they're really giving the reins over. For now, what I consider him to be is an extremely premium handcuff that might be a touchdown dependent running back three. So, like, there's probably going to be 6 to 7 games this year where he falls in the end zone and you can get running back three flexible numbers out of him. That's sort of how we're looking at it for now. But against a defense like this, and again, until we see it, I don't start him in fantasy. But he's a great bench piece. I love having him on my bench. Um, and then Justin Fields. Justin Fields has sort of slid back to that back end. Like he's going behind Brock Purdy, behind Dak Prescott, behind Drake May in most of my drafts in front of Caleb Williams. Where originally, like in the beginning of the summer, he was getting steamed up all the way in like the 70s. I would say that if you got him as your quarterback too, that's perfectly reasonable. That's great. Hold on to him and see. I would not be eager to roll him out this week against the Steelers. I would not jump on that. Maybe let some other guy cover the grenade. If you have like Jared Goff, I would start Jared Goff over him. If you have Caleb Williams, I would start Caleb Williams over him. And those are two guys with tough defensive matchups. I just like their environment better this week. Jordan Love, I would start Jordan Love against Detroit over him all day. I would start JJ McCarthy against the Bears over Justin Fields this week. So yeah, sort of fading him a little bit as a low end QB2. The Steelers are where it gets weird. Again, I'll start with the easy one. Where you drafted DK Metcalf, you probably have to start him this week. I don't know how excited I would be about it. He's got Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner is going to shadow him. He's the only competent pass catcher besides potentially Jonnu Smith. He is the only competent pass catcher there. He is Aaron Rodgers' number one target, but he draws a tough matchup, man. And he's going on the road with a game implied under 40. I would be looking at other options if you could. I would start Emeka Egbuka at Atlanta over him. I would rather start Romo Dunze against Minnesota than I would start DK. Certainly like Ted McMillan, roll him out. Matthew Golden. I prefer Matthew Golden versus Detroit over DK this week. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. And then so Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren, Aaron Rodgers, and John. Oh, come on, get out of here. Don't do that. Caleb Johnson and Jalen Warren. We want to see what the usage is. I have reluctantly been taking Caleb Johnson as my running back three if I feel like I need depth at the position, usually mid round 7 to early round 8. He profiles to me and Ted like someone who's going to eventually be a 15 to 20 catch back. He excelled in this exact scheme. They went and got him and said, "This is our workhorse. This is what we got him for." I just think there's been enough concern in camp about specifically his pass blocking, about him sort of handling some of the dirty work of being a running back. I don't know what comfort level there's going to be between him and Aaron early on. Where with Jalen Warren, you have one of the best 3 down backs in football. Like in terms of on a per touch basis, in terms of his pass blocking, his route running, his yards per route run, he's actually an extremely efficient 3rd down back. That's sort of what he should be doing in the league, right? So I think right off the bat, at best, you're going to get 2 down work out of Caleb Johnson. I don't think you're going to get a 15 to 20 touch workload to start. I do think that's what he will grow into. But again, like, so I have some hero RB builds where I got him. I'm going to roll him out there, right? If he's going to be going next to, I believe on one of my rosters, Christian McCaffrey. I went hero RB. Fine. I think a lot of you guys are going to have to start him because of where you took him. But if you have options, I would certainly look elsewhere. And then Jalen Warren, again, like I grabbed him a lot in Underdog. I'm interested in him from a best ball perspective this year. I don't. To me, like a low end flex would be lucky to get out of him. And then week 1, I would hope you guys have better options. There's no buys, there's no injuries. You've got him around 8, 9, 10. Like maybe don't be in a rush to get Jalen Warren in your roster. I don't know. What do you think, Ted? What do you think of the Steelers backfield? I know you are bullish on Caleb.
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts about this game, man. First of all, I would like to officially say that I am no longer a Steelers hater. Last year, it was my most hated team. I thought the fans were obnoxious and delusional about where they were. There's just a lot of things that irked me about this franchise and what they were doing. But full disclosure, Chico guy, love Aaron Rodgers, absolutely love Aaron Rodgers. He's one of my favorite players, and this is going to be the last ride for him, I'd imagine. So I I don't know. And then also like really, this is a revenge game on both sides, right? Like the Steelers got rid of Justin Fields and said we don't want you, so the Jets took him, and then the Jets cast off Aaron Rodgers. So they just kind of traded bottom tier quarterbacks, I guess. I don't know. I love Aaron, but he's probably bottom tier at this point. But as for the backfield, I don't know. early on what's going to happen. I would lean it's probably going to be Jalen Warren early in the season because of the pass protection issues. But listen, man, I'm not of the opinion that Jalen Warren is a starting NFL caliber running back, and they drafted Caleb Johnson for a reason, right? I just think it's a matter of time there. So yeah, in a tough defensive matchup, I don't love either of them here, but I think there's going to be value later, and I think there's going to be value in some of the pass catchers later because despite his age, I think Aaron Rodgers is probably an upgrade over Russell Wilson. I think we
Yep.
might see guys like Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin when he comes back, and the tricky decision is at some point, but or the Muth, whatever. Until then, we'll just kind of leave it, I guess.
Yep.
Uh, All right, next one. We got the Las Vegas Raiders going to New England to play the Patriots. A lot of excitement from both of these franchises, really. I feel like
Yep.
they were both bottom of the barrel for a couple of years here, but I think they're finally doing things like as an organization to get better. So two franchises making their way up. They might not be all the way there yet, but I'm stoked for this one. The Raiders have an implied team total of 20.5 points. Patriots have an implied team total of 23 points. For the Raiders, we're starting exciting new running back Ashton Jeanty. We're starting Brock Bowers. We're going to start Jacoby Myers, and we're going to start Geno Smith. New face, same face, new place, I guess. Moved from Seattle this year to Oakland, and I think he's going to be an upgrade over what they had last year. For the Patriots, we're starting Drake May, and we're calling this a smash spot for him. We're starting Trevion Henderson, one of the fantasy community's most hyped and excited for players, and then we're starting Diggs, another old face in a new place. Came over from Houston, coming off an ACL, but poised to be the wide receiver one for the Patriots this year. We're going to sit all of the other New England wide receivers until further notice, and then we're going to tricky decision Ramondre Stevenson and Hunter Henry. So we'll start with Oakland first. Not Oakland, Las Vegas first, because I feel like it's a little bit easier, right? This to me looks like an extremely, extremely concentrated offense right now. Last year, Jacoby Myers was one of the only guys with a pulse on the team, and he produced. It was Jacoby and Brock Bowers, really, right? And that was really good. Now you add Ashton Genty to the mix. To me, it's those three guys are the big three until Jacoby gets traded. If he gets traded, he asked for a trade. And then Gino, he threw a lot last year. I've talked a lot of shit about Geno Smith, the quarterback, right? But without a doubt he's improved his game since he over his time in Seattle, I guess. I think he's going to be a marginal improvement over what the Raiders have had with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew and all that stuff. So what should be a pretty plus matchup, I like it here. For the Patriots, I think as a whole, I know I said there's things that I like about the team for sure. I'm optimistic about the direction they're going. I'm not sure if they're there yet from a weapons perspective, and I think they might just finish a little bit lower than a lot of people are projecting them to be. That being said, though, Drake May, he was one of the best quarterbacks in terms of creating plays off script last season, and he's a great rusher of the football too, right? Those off schedule scrambles, he just makes plays happen with his arms and with his arm and his legs. So we like it here against a Raiders defense that is not very good outside of Max Crosby. Henderson, we're going to start him because of the draft capital at this point, right? He is vaulted all the way up to the fourth round, like sometimes early fourth round in drafts. You're not drafting this player here to you're not drafting that player there to not start him, right, against the Raiders. So we're going to put him as a start. I think we do need to mention though that Ramondre Stevenson is still on the team. That's why he's a tricky decision, and this is not going to be an Omarion Hampton in it for the Chargers situation to me. I think this is much more of a split. I think this is much more of a Ramondre Stevenson on first and second down, very clearly, with Henderson mixed in to the third down role, the pass catching thing. So we there's a lot to be excited about from what we've seen in the preseason, the explosiveness, the talent. Some people have called him baby Jameer Gibbs. I'm not going to go that far, especially on the Patriots, right? But it looks promising, and if he ends up being that level of talent that everyone's kind of wish casting him to be, he could be a savage on this team with not many other weapons. And then Diggs, I, I'm a little bit lower on that player this year than I was last year. Last year was one of my favorite drafts, favorite players to draft. He's coming off the ACL, but the Patriots really don't have anyone else, and Diggs is a much higher quality of player than the Patriots have had out wide in a long time. So if you believe that Drake May is going to be good this year and you believe Drake May is going to have success passing the ball, I think you need to be bullish on Diggs to some extent. We already talked about Ramondre. Hunter Henry, he's just another ancillary piece attached to the passing offense, right? Like, I don't love the start here, but like if you or a zero tight end roster, that sort of thing, you could find a reason to stick him in your lineup in what should be a plus matchup. Anything I missed here? Was I fair to the Patriots?
Yeah. I mean, you're lower on him than the market is. That's fine.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, we'll see. I'll be really interested to see just strictly carries and first and second down snaps, how that splits up between Ramondre and Trevion. And something to remember is Trevion had serious issues staying healthy in college. Every single time he got a serious workload, he could not stay healthy. So certainly, like if people start dropping Ramondre after this week, if he gets like 5 carries, I think he presents as a 3 down handcuff should anything happen. I hope it doesn't. I love Trevion as a player. And by the way, I have seen him go as high as 28. 28 in my redraft leagues. So,
Going to the moon.
okay, Cardinals at the Saints. One of the best defenses you can stream this week, by the way, the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals with an implied team total of 24, playing the Saints with an implied team total of 18.5. Um, so for the Cardinals this year, I mean, I think they're going to take a big leap forward as an offense. They just seem like they've got, McBride looks like he's really entering his prime in what could be a pretty special career if he keeps this up. I don't know if I would probably call Kyler Moore on the decline. But look, he's getting better weapons around him every day. James Conner had the most healthy season he's had of his career last year. Trey Benson should factor in more heavily into the offense. Michael Wilson's a fine wide receiver too. I think this is an offense that's on the come up, and when they go against bad defenses like this, they're going to beat the hell out of them, man. So against the Saints, and you will see this all year, we're going to roll everything really. I mean, very few cases where we're not, obviously, except for way distal pieces like Michael Wilson that at best is a DFS thing. But even in a game like this, I think it's going to be really run heavy. I don't think you'd want to roll him. So you're going to start Kyler Murray, you're going to start Trey McBride, you're going to start James Conner, and you're going to start Marvin Harrison Jr. Really, unless you guys did an insane job drafting your rosters, or if you're in 8 to 10 team leagues, I don't know why you would deviate from that too much. To me, that's about those guys, where you took them, you're starting all of them except for maybe Kyler if you took a double QB roster and he went late. The latest I saw him go this year was round 12, which is pretty crazy for Kyler. Um, for the Saints, Kellen Moore is a competent play caller, believe it or not, right? Well, not believe it or not, we saw it with the Eagles, but even in the context of the Saints, right? The guy does know what he's doing. I think I would really admire it. I mean, me and Ted gotten vicious back and forth about this. If I were the Eagles, I would rather have Kellen Moore piloting my ship than Nick Sirianni. I think they should have kept the schematic guy and dumped the vibes guy. They didn't. Um, but his offense has been really, really fruitful for wide receiver. He has done a fantastic job of creating wide receiver production. Chris Olave is one of the leaders in yards per route run in the NFL since entering. I believe it's 2.14 yards per route run over the last 3 seasons. And then Alvin Kamara, I mean, it's rocky, it's up and down. It tends to be front loaded at the beginning of the season, but at least to this point, he has not dropped off. And I think unless Chris Olave gets knocked unconscious, unless Alvin Kamara finally does start to show some level of decline, you're going to start him every week against every defense. You're starting those guys. Again, Olave, maybe if you took him as a wide receiver 4 or 5, you're going to have some options on there. But in 12-team leagues or more, I would be surprised if you have 3 better options this week to roll. Maybe you do, though. I mean, on some Yahoo drafts, he's going all the way into the 80s. Like if he's your pick in the 80s, fine. But if you took him in the 60s, roll him out there. Um, and so I can't. I'm laughing because Ted put Rattler as a sit. Yeah, don't start Spencer Rattler. And then sort of tricky decision. I know that this guy picks up steam in like the not nichey fantasy community. I don't know how to describe it, but the heady fantasy community, the high stakes community. I've seen so much love for Rashid Shaheed this year, and I know he actually flashed pretty nicely last year. And I think part of it is the debate about whether or not he's going to be their move guy at wide receiver, the guy who gets kicked into motion and gets played around with different positions in the formation. I imagine they're going to do that with both guys. But again, with Kellen Moore, he has been tremendously productive with that guy. Um, So could we see something like Devonte Smith's top 20 receiver finish that Kellen got out of him? Two top 20 receiver. I believe he was wide receiver 16 and 18 the 2 seasons he played with Kellen Moore. Is Shaheed as talented as Devonte? Absolutely not. Is the offense as good as the Eagles? Absolutely not. But could you see that role brought over to the Saints? I think it's actually possible. And even the worst passing offenses in the NFL every year pass for like 2,800 to 3,200 yards. I think 3,000 is usually the floor, actually. So 3,000 yards, 17 weeks or 18 weeks of the fantasy season, 17 games. What are you hoping for? Maybe we get 200 a game if we're lucky, right? But 200 yards a game. So I would be holding Rashid and just see where it goes, but I would probably not be starting him this week.
Yeah, I mean, the only things I have on this game, right? The Cardinals are returning almost their exact same offensive unit it had last
Yeah.
year. The only things that we're really looking at being different here potentially is I think Kyler Murray's playing for his job this year. I think that if it goes poorly, they will cut bait with him because he's too expensive and just not, he hasn't returned the value so far. And I'm going to watch Marvin Harrison Jr. and just see if there's any improvement. I know a lot of analysts did not like to see what he put on tape last year. They did not like the things that were happening there last year. I still believe in the talent. It's just kind of if he will produce. I would start him here though. And then for the Saints, this is the bigger thing for me, man. I think we are on alert that there is no one that is startable for this New Orleans Saints team. I'm not saying this week because we haven't seen it yet, but there's a good. I think that their quarterback situation is so bad with Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck that it might completely tank their whole team. Like I don't know if this is a hot take. I think 0-17 is on the board for New Orleans this year. I think they're blatantly tanking for Arch Manning, and I think it's really, really, really hard for me to get there on ADP with Alvin Kamara. Chris Olave, he was cheaper, but also he has like severe concussion issues, right? Like where if he gets concussed again, that's like 6 games minimum that he's missing. That entire team freaks me out. I feel bad for Kellen Moore. I like Kellen Moore. It feels like this is a total just lame duck year for them though, and they're gonna try and reload this thing next year. We'll see. I'm interested. I guess it's kind of interesting that you're a little bit more bullish on the Saints than me, right? You said the worst passing offense puts up like minimum 3,000 yards. I just see the wheels potentially falling all the way off this thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm being unreasonable and a pessimist, but their
I
entire
mean,
roster scared me. I wouldn't touch any of them.
what is the scenario that you see Alvin Kamara becoming unstartable while healthy? And I don't. I would think his floor is like 11 points a game.
It would be if the terrible offensive line can't block. There's no threat to throw the ball down the field, and defenses can just disrespect the shit out of them and play at the line. Like we've seen years where the Saints suck and Kamara fades down the end, right? Like the Kamara splits with and without Derek Carr are staggering. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people love to look at the macro on his points per game and say, well, Kamara was the RB10 last year in points per game or whatever it was, right? But if you
Right.
look at the splits with and without Carr, like I'm not of the opinion that Derek Carr was very good, but at least he was an NFL quarterback. This
Right.
room, can you remember a worse quarterback room than this? Like seriously, like I think this might be worse than the Patriots starting Jacoby Brissett last year. But at least they had Drake May. They have nothing. They have nothing. Like unless you think Shuck is like gonna do it, but he looks terrible. Actually,
Well, like, yeah,
yeah,
like it's like when the Colts would roll out the post Peyton Manning or post Andrew Luck Colts. And they would just show up with some guy that throws. Yeah, I think I mean, dude, like I have extremely little. I have zero Kamara shares over 70 roster, whatever, 60 rosters. I have no Kamara, none. Maybe one. And I have maybe three best ball shares of Olave. I've been taking everyone else in his range. So, I mean, I agree. I think we do tend to forget like the ball does have to go somewhere. No matter how bad the team is, like no matter they're still gonna run their freaking, whatever, 30 pass plays a game, like 35 pass plays a game. I yeah. We'll see. We'll see. It
Listen,
is
man,
not the situation I dove into.
if this offense is not a complete dumpster fire, tip my cap to Kellen Moore, man, because he's got his work cut out for him. All right, then we got the Ohio game. We got the Bengals going to Cleveland to play the Browns. Bengals have an implied team total of 26.5 points, and the Browns have an implied team total of 21 points. For the Bengals, we're starting Joe Burrow, we're starting Jamar Chase, we're starting T. Higgins, and we're starting Chase Brown. That's pretty basic. I feel like it's very similar to slides we had last year, right? It's their core guys. And we're going to sit the tight ends. And then for the Browns, we're calling out Joe Flacco as a DFS start. At 70 years old, Joe Flacco is opening day starter for an NFL team. Shocking, but that's where the Browns are. We're going to start Jerry Jeudy. We're going to start David Njoku. Then for the tricky decisions, we're going to STD Cedric Tillman as like a DFS option, Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson. So we'll start with the Bengals. I feel like this is easy, right? Last season, this offense won a lot of managers' fantasy championships. They didn't really do anything to change the problems that they have, right? And they're paying T. Higgins even more money now. So they just kind of doubled down on this is the Joe Burrow vanity project and go out there and try and win MVPs, buddy. We'll never compete because our team isn't complete, but we'll score a lot of points. So all of those guys to me are just locked and loaded starters. Like, do I want to call them all elite starters? Yeah, I probably do. Even T. Higgins, I think, makes that cut. They're all just going to be elite, and when their defense is as bad as they are, I think that they're going to have to score to keep up and just be making their managers very happy. For the Browns, it's funny. I actually feel better about Joe Flacco in the cluster that Cleveland has than the Saints, like significantly. Joe Flacco, I'm not under the impression that he's in his prime. He was never elite, even when he won that Super Bowl against the Niners. But this Bengals defense is so bad that I think it's worth a shot in DFS, right? I definitely like David Njoku a little bit more than Jerry Jeudy, just like over the entire season, because I think Njoku is going to be the safety blanket. He'll be the easy read for the quarterback a lot of times, and I think that with that quarterback room, they're going to need that a lot. And Jerry Jeudy, it just feels like I think near the end of last season, after Deshaun Watson went out, he was like the wide receiver 7 the rest of the way. So there was value there last year if you were a Jerry Jeudy manager. He's going lower this year, like 6, 7 rounds, something like 6th or 7th round, something like that. I mean, if anybody's going to do it, it's him, and we've seen him do it for Cleveland. In a plus matchup, you might as well. The only other thing really I want to talk about in this game is the Browns running back situation. Quinshon Judkins, their rookie they took in the second round, everyone was very excited about him. But he had some off-field troubles. He's still not signed his contract to play for the Cleveland Browns yet. He's actually, I think he's technically still eligible to go back to college if that's what he wants to do. I'll be looking for the Texas Longhorns week 2. Quinshon Judkins running out there out of the tunnel. But until there's any sort of movement on that, their backfield is Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson. Dylan Sampson is the 4th round rookie they took in addition to Quinshon Judkins, and Jerome Ford is the underwhelming just veteran that's been on the team. Whatever you want to do with that, or whatever you lean like in terms of the player, there's gonna be some marginal value, I think, in the Cleveland backfield. To me, it's just kind of which one is it going to be, and is it 50-50 or do they favor a side? I know Yanni has thoughts on what he thinks it's going to be. To me, I think flip a coin. I probably lean Samson just a little bit because he's a rookie and he hasn't like just been not good in the NFL yet. He still has an opportunity to be not good in the NFL, but we haven't seen it. And I feel like this Browns team, they're bad enough to where they're going to want to just kind of develop their rookies and young players and leave their season at that. So that slight advantage Samson for me, but nothing major. What do you think, man?
Yeah, so I have a really cool roster actually that I love. That one where I took Christian McCaffrey in the mid first round. I have a roster that's Christian McCaffrey, Trevion Henderson, RJ Harvey, Dylan Sampson, and Quinshon Judkins. So I just went down the row and took 4 rookie running backs behind Christian McCaffrey. Um, well, you know, right, that I'm high on Samson as a player. Like he's just a good player, dude. And I think when they took him because of his third down skill set and his dump offs and all that sort of stuff, I think they took him envisioning that he would complement Judkins, right? So now Judkins is out, and I think he's a better receiver than Jerome Ford. I think Jerome Ford is kind of just a guy, and he may be a better runner. He got some recognition in college just as being like a talented player. He's going at like the 120, 130 range on Yahoo a lot of the time. Sometimes he gets forgotten about and slips even later. Um, I like if he's on any of your waivers, he absolutely shouldn't be. I just want, just keep an eye on it, man. I think he may do really well. If one of them pops this week, you may want to start exploring him in trades. I have a roster where Jerry Jeudy slipped all the way to mid 90s in one of my drafts. And I felt like I had to take him at that range, right? But I'm going to immediately try to trade him after the Bengals game if that's how it breaks. But just keep an eye. Dylan Sampson should not be on anyone's waivers, and maybe Jerome Ford shouldn't either. I find that one less palatable just because I don't see him having any sort of a role once Judkins is back, if he's back. But personally, just on the talent, yeah, man, I really favor Samson there. Okay, oh God, man, just turbulence for these two teams this offseason. Dolphins at the Colts. Dolphins with an implied team total of 22.5, going to the Colts with an implied team total of 24. The Colts, look, man, I would imagine until something changes here, until someone emerges, I don't care about the efficiency metrics on Josh Downs. I don't care. He's had a hamstring injury all week. I know he's flashed wide receiver two upside. It makes no difference to me at all. I think their passing game is going to run through Tyler Warren. I think Tyler Warren is one of the great college tight ends I've ever seen. He drew comparisons to Gronkowski. I was watching a podcast today where they said it's like Jeremy Shockey and George Kittle had a baby. When you're getting thrown around with like legitimate Hall of Famers and some of the best to ever play your position, and you haven't even taken a snap in football, and then when you do take snaps in the preseason, you're out there for like 90% of the routes and getting targeted 40%, 50% of your routes run. Just dude, Tyler Warren's a smash. He is my second most rostered tight end in Underdog and tied for my most rostered tight end in redraft. And then Jonathan Taylor, I know their O-line looked terrible in the preseason. I know it's pretty scary. It is not the most secure feeling in the world rolling Jonathan Taylor out there this year. However, he did turn his season around last year, finished incredibly strong, was one of the players most correlated with fantasy championships. And we all kind of know what the deal is, right? He has 1,800-yard upside. He's one of the best pure runners in football. And with Danny Dimes in there, I think he has a lot more receiving upside than he did with Anthony Richardson, right? Because Danny Dimes is less likely to tuck it and run. He still will run a little bit, but he's less likely to tuck it and run. He's probably going to be happy to dump it off. So you're going to roll Jonathan Taylor. You're going to roll Tyler Warren. You're going to sit Danny Dimes. Do not start Danny Dimes. I know the last time he was a full season starter, he was a top 10 QB. Don't start Danny Dimes. And then wide receivers. So personally, for me, my favorite that I've been picking out here is Pittman. I actually have like a pretty good portion of Pittman exposure. Usually round 9, round 10, 9, 10 turn. Almost always after pick 100. Very rarely am I going before pick 100 on him. But he is sort of like this wide receiver 3 who had been a perennial wide receiver 2 until he played a season with a broken back. I think the market's a little too bearish on him. I do. Um, I don't know. I just wonder what would have happened if he had just not come back last year and all we had was the 2 year ago sample and then the few games he played before he got hurt. Would he be going as a wide receiver 5? I don't know. So that's where I've been taking my shots there. But I'm not. We're not starting. Do not start any of the Colts until we see exactly what's going on. Who knows? We might get Downs in the Wandale Robinson role. Downs might get 10 or 15 targets out of the slot per game, and all of a sudden he's the newest PPR scam. And that's look, if that happens, throw him in your flex. Enjoy the nice PPR scam. But I'm not going to be first to market with that. I'll go ahead and let you guys sweat it out. For the Dolphins, I think a perfectly fine DFS start or a 2 QB start, depending on who you're coming in with. But I think when you're going 2 QB this week, you'll have better choices. But still, I think he is startable as Tua. Currently the quarterback 21 in ECR. Tyreek Hill, look, if you took Tyreek Hill in the 3rd or 4th round, you're going to start him. He's had a quad injury all month. He's been telling the team to go F itself. Mike McDaniel's doing incredibly awkward interviews about Tyreek. The vibes are atrocious. I have almost no shares total. I don't want any. I'm not interested. I passed on him for Kenneth Walker the third. And who did I pass on him for today? It was someone hilarious. I don't remember who I passed on for that, but I passed on him like 3 or 4 times. I'm not doing it. Jalen Waddle, but Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill are going against a pretty soft defense that'll probably force him to pass the ball a little bit. I think they're both Jalen Waddle is an upside flex, Tyreek Hill as a RB or wide receiver too. I think you're starting him. And then A Chain, who is on bust watch. I don't consider injuries busts, but some people do. I think his calf is banged up, right? And we just don't know. He could go out there just like Christian McCaffrey in pregame warmups and be declared out an hour before the game. It seems like that's not going to happen. It seems like he's good. And the various Twitter doctors that I tend to read on say there's only about a 5 to 10% chance that he re-injures it after he's cleared. So apparently the odds are pretty good that he goes out there and gets full run. It was enough to scare me. I'll be very honest. I consider that range so deep. I love Bucky. I love Chase Brown. I was just sort of happy to leave A Chain alone in redraft this year. It scared me enough, right? Because I had a massive Christian McCaffrey exposure last year. Um, so he is on bust watch. We'll see. We'll see what the role looks like. We'll see what the offense looks like. There's a lot of question marks there. Um, Either A Chain Bulls or A Chain Bears are going to be talking some shit on Twitter after this game. And then you're going to sit Darren Waller. LOL. Don't draft. Don't have if Darren Waller's on your roster and redraft at this point in the year. Something went horribly wrong. Ollie Gordon. Love Ollie Gordon as a DFS play. Okay. I think he has a good chance to score a touchdown at the goal line here. People forget, dude, Ollie Gordon 2 years ago was in the Ashton Genty conversation. He was being talked about like he was going to be a high end first round pick in the draft and then had a horrific season in 2024. He just didn't look good. He did all sorts of things went wrong. Ollie Gordon is a pretty premium physical talent. And based on what we've seen in the preseason, based on what we've seen with him working his way up the chart, based on the Jalen Wright injury, but also the fact that Jalen looked horrible. Um, yeah, I think Ollie Gordon is one. He should be rostered in every league. Make sure he's not on your bench in your 12-team leagues. I'm sorry, I'm getting blown up on my phone. My brother's going tuna fishing. Make sure he is not on the. I went to check the wire in two of my drafts. This was before the news it all broke with HA, and he was just sitting there. I was like, oh my god, my RB5, yes. Um, but yeah, I think Ollie's a really interesting hold this year. If he gets the Mostert role, dude, if they decide like A Chain's a little banged up and then their teams are still sitting in too high safety and maybe A Chain's a little more inefficient, like he dropped his efficiency quite significantly last year, there's a world where Ollie Gordon has double-digit touchdowns where they start feeding him at the goal line. He's a way thicker dude. I don't know. I don't know if that's the case because their O line can't block anyone. They let their running backs get hit behind the line. Maybe it doesn't really matter who's running the ball. Maybe it does though. Ollie Gordon is someone you guys should be speculating on and speculating on hard. Even if A Chain misses 2 or 3 weeks, the owner might trade a haul for him. So that's a little. We have to get in some of our preseason takes here as we're going through this first one. That's a little Ollie Gordon rant. Keep an eye on the kid as the year goes on.
You know what I'm gonna say, right? Let's just do it once, and I won't do this anymore until further developments happen. But to me, it is on the board. Ollie Gordon is the best running back on the Dolphins roster. Um, with A Chain, it is not just injury bust watch for me. It is when you draft a player like A Chain, that there's just a lot of moving pieces with the Dolphins offense, right? With A Chain, he was averaging single digit fantasy points per game last year without Tua. So you need a quarterback who has had multiple concussions in the league, has done the fencing position 2 or 3 different times. One of the most like high injury risk quarterbacks. You need A Chain to be healthy, you need Tua to be healthy, and you need the offense to be the exact same like weird everything short of first down that it was last year if his like if HA's efficiency on the ground is the same, right? Like last year, we saw that, like Yanni said, there was a massive regression to the mean for HN in terms of his yards per carry, yards per opportunity, and that's what happens when you're not a change of pace back anymore, and you start to be the featured guy. So for me, right, I view this Dolphins team. You have to make a call when you talk about the Dolphins about what you think of Tua in the offense as a whole, right? If you think this offense is like just going to be completely broken, Tua doesn't have it anymore, and it's just going to be bad, right? Then I get the HA and bullishness. For me, I'm more of the opinion that Tua is not terrible. Like I know the offseason reports have been awful, right? We've had reports of him throwing multi-pick practices, that sort of thing. First pass in 7-on-7 was picked off. Like I get it, but there were the same types of reports about Brock Purdy, like the year he was competing for MVP. I don't think picks in practice matter that much. And to me, the Dolphins pay so much to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think that Mike McDaniel knows that in order for this team to succeed, they want to push the ball down the field with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. So I'm much more of a bull on Tyreek Hill. I think that passing up Tyreek Hill for Ken Walker's kind of crazy personally, but you just kind of have to pick a side on this Dolphins thing, like when you're talking about them. So that's just kind of where I'm at. Am I unreasonably mad at A Chain the player? No, I just see that there are so many paths to that not working at ADP, and like I just can't get there. I just can't get there. I will not draft him. I refuse to draft him. Hey, maybe he's good this year and he just tells me to eat shit. But that's where I'm at with it. And like I said, we won't do this again until something changes. Developments in Miami. For the record, I like Mike McDaniel. I hope the Dolphins are good this year. I hope Tua
I do.
can figure it out. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
him. I don't like the Dolphins at all. All right, next one. We got the Bucks going to Atlanta to play the Falcons. This should be. I'll be looking at an over on this game. Let's just say that. The Buccaneers have an implied team total of 24.5 points, and the Falcons have an implied team total of 22 points. For the Buccaneers, we're starting Baker Mayfield. We're starting my favorite running back. I don't forget, I was the first free Tendies fantasy member to be all in on this player, Bucky Irving. We're starting Mike Evans, Mr. 1,000 yards. Will he do it again? And then we're starting exciting rookie Emeka Egbuka. I remember during the draft when he got picked, a lot of people were confused by that. They're like, why did they pick Egbuka? Now it looks like they really need him, and he's in a great position to contribute immediately. Then we're going to sit Cade Otton. Then for the Falcons, we're going to start Drake London and Bijan Robinson, two top 24 fantasy picks everywhere. We're going to sit Darnell Mooney, and then we're going to tricky decision Kyle Pitts. He just will not go away. He will. There are Kyle Pitts believers every year, regardless of what happens. And then we're going to tricky decision Michael Penix Jr. as well. So let's start with the Falcons first. Listen, man, I think this team, I think they kind of fall into the Bengals and Cowboys category of a really, really bad defense that has a chance to just be a fiesta of points every week. And I think so much of that relies on Michael Penix Jr. being a starting quality to good quarterback. I don't think that the 3 games he played last year against 3 of the worst defenses in the league when there was no tape on the guy are indicative of like what he will be. But I think it's a fresh slate and he has a chance to prove himself. I think that all of the bullishness on a guy like Drake London, like he's Drake London has started to go in the first round of drafts sometimes now. He's creeping up there to like 12 overall. He's going over guys like Brian Thomas Jr. There's crazy metrics that suggest that Drake London could have a breakout elite like top 5 wide receiver season for fantasy. I think a lot of that rides on Michael Penix being good. We'll see what happens. I don't pretend to know what Michael Penix is. I think Yanni might have stronger conviction on that. But what I do know is with terrible quarterback play, Drake London has been startable his entire career in some way, shape, or form. Last year, it was a down year for wide receivers, but he finished as the wide receiver 9. He presents a really high floor. He has high target volume. Great player. I think that we have not seen the best of him, and this could be the explosion spot. And the same with Bijan Robinson, man. He's slid up to the consensus fantasy running back 1 this year. I might not be there. I don't think he is the fantasy running back 1, but there's a lot of reasons to like this player with the passing game work, with how good he's looked on the ground, with the Falcons looking like they might be a better version of an offense, right? Like there's a ton of stuff to love about Bijan this year. I don't ever foresee you taking him out of your starting lineup all year if you're a Bijan manager, barring injury. Kyle Pitts, I think that the Kyle Pitts thing is just more wish casting on Penix is really what it is, right? They took him like what 7th overall when they drafted him. He has not lived up to the hype whatsoever. He's potentially just a bust in the NFL, which would be one of the highest drafted tight ends I've ever seen that's busted. But I
I
don't
think
know.
he went fourth. I think he went fourth
Oh,
overall.
4th overall, my bad. Yeah, like that would be crazy. I I don't know. I mean, is if you're a zero tight end roster in a game with 2 pretty exciting offenses where I think the over hits here, I think both of these teams are going to be able to move the ball.
Yeah.
if he gets in the end zone once, that already paid off, right? And maybe he's good. Maybe he has like that Vernon Davis career trajectory where physical freak ends up figuring it out 4 years in, right? And he could be a monster. For the Bucks, they're in a tough spot right now with the Chris Godwin thing. I think that he is further behind schedule than the team expected when they signed him to that contract. I know the Patriots offered Godwin like 35 a year or something, and the Bucks couldn't match that offer. But Godwin wanted to come back to Tampa and be with Baker Mayfield and this offense. So he's still not ready to play. I think it's right now the reports are it's probably going to be week 4 or later that he gets in, and Jalen McMillan's on IR for probably through the Bucks bye week, which is week 9, right? So it's going to be Mike Evans and Igbuka, I think. Like, if you think that Baker Mayfield has the type of season he did last year, if you think that the Bucks offense is going to be good, which I think they will be, then yeah, you got to be all in on these players. These guys could be smashes, get you off to a blazing start. And then Bucky, man, great player, very fun to watch, very exciting to watch. I was messing around before Yanni is the OG Bucky guy, okay? I'm a little bit of a bandwagoner there, but watching him play football is fun. In the Bucks, like they had a Rashad White problem for 3 seasons. They finally kind of figured out, hey, this guy's pretty good. Let's give him the ball more. So Bucky played his way into the featured back role at the end of last year, and he should be that player this year. So I really love the player. I really love the spot for both these offenses. Cade Otton we have as a sit because he's injured right now. Uh, I think it said questionable for week 1. He's on the wrong side of that. I think that while these weapons are out, though, if Cade Otton plays, there could be some value there. His fantasy points per game when multiple wide receivers missed were really like pretty good last year. What do you think, man? Did I miss anything?
No, I mean, yeah, I was taking like 190 shares of like pick 190 shares of Kate Otten in best ball. He's like one of my most rostered tight ends because I kept taking him at the end of drafts. I was kind of hoping he would like have a few spike weeks this year, but I don't know. We'll see. He's got to get back out there. Okay, Titans at the Broncos. Really excited to see the Cam Ward Titans. Titans with an implied team total of 17. Broncos with an implied team total of 24.5. Right off the bat, even though we're not going to be terribly bullish on them this week, I do love Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley this year, and I'm going to encourage you guys if either of them come out slow to be shooting offers like crazy. Like I'm not starting Ridley this week because I know what's coming. Right, really tough defense, fantastic secondary. Patrick Surtain Jr. They rebuilt the box in Denver. I think Denver is going to be one of the most hellacious defenses to face this year. I think you're going to see as the year goes on, we're going to continue to fade offensive pieces against them. Crazy, crazy work in Mile High Stadium for Cam Ward to come out in his professional debut against that, but that is what he's coming out undermanned. Um, I think you're still starting Tony Pollard. He's one of the few running backs in the NFL with 3 1,000-yard seasons in a row. He showed a genuine bell cow workload without Spears last year, and he doesn't have Spears for the first at least 4 weeks this year. I'm just not leaving that on my bench. I know it's not going to be his ceiling weeks. There's gonna be better days ahead, but I would guess this will be one of his weaker performances of the year. But good chance to fall in the end zone. They're not going to score 0. They're not going to get blanked. Cam Ward, kind of a trendy pick to throw at the end of your bench or whatever. I would stay away from him in DFS. Stay away from. I mean, you're not going to really start him. Okonkwo, again, another guy that me and Ted both have really high underdog exposure to, because I love the player. I love the talent. I think the offense is probably underrated. Um, you know, uh, for now. Ugh. And then Calvin Ridley. I love Calvin Ridley this year. I think Calvin Ridley has it well within his range of outcomes to be like wide receiver 17, 16, 18 this year, 20 to 24 at the worst. I think he's not priced correctly. It's really interesting. He's been one of the guys I've seen the biggest split on. There's a contingent of the content creators and analysts that think he should be going more in like the 5th round. There's a contingent that think in the 7th round you're passing up guys with crazy upside, and how could you ever take him? I was happy to take my shots where I could. Where I've been able to get him, I have, but I don't think this is a good matchup. I would look to start. I'm starting Zay Flowers over him this week. And then for the Broncos, you're going to roll out Bo Nix, RJ Harvey, Cortland Sutton. I don't, for Bo Nix and Sutton, where you took them, you're going to be hard pressed to find a roster where you don't have to start them. I actually have a roster with Sutton and Harvey that I got at the 5-6 turn. I'm going to opt for Sutton there just because the Titans tend to have a pretty good rushing defense. But I think Harvey's startable this week. I'm going to assume that they want to see what they have in him and they want to get him reps, and that J.K. Dobbins was more of a veteran depth signing. That is how I'm treating it. That's how I'm going to go about it for this week. I think Dobbins will get less and less work as the year goes on, but I don't be shocked if you see a heavy workload there. And look, the same thing with the Tony Pollard Ridley side. If Harvey comes out and has like 6 points, and if his drafters are panicking, start shooting him offers like crazy. Take someone who goes off this week like Jerry Judy, package him with someone else, and go get yourself RJ Harvey for the second half of the season. And if J.K. Dobbins goes off and it looks like he's the lead back, sell him to your league mates as a top 20 back and see what you can flip him for. Um, you're not going to start other receivers in Denver. We just don't know. Maybe Bryant emerges at some point in the year. Vele's out of the way now. It seems possible. Maybe Mims is the guy. His workload went way up in the preseason, but until we know, just let him sit there. I would not roster Bryant and redraft. Mims is like a 13th pick. If you want a wide receiver 5 or 6 to speculate on, I guess that's okay. And then your sort of tricky decisions are going to be J.K. Dobbins and Evan Ingram. I think the game script is going to be right for to be pretty rush heavy. So J.K. Dobbins is closer to a start for me than a sit. I think he's going to be a perfectly fine flex that maybe will give you a touchdown. And I also think he's going to play his best football in the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season. His body has been through so many different traumas and injuries, and it really showed last year when he dropped off as the season went on. But certainly for the first third of it, he should be spry. Evan Ingram, it's just weird, man. They throw around that Joker role term and they keep giving it to different guys or whatever because everyone's looking for that move tight end, the Jimmy Graham role that Sean Payton dude. I don't know. I don't think Ingram has not been good for the last few years without volume. He's been a volume based play. Is he going to really see volume in Denver? You got to figure that with the target share to the running backs and with Cortland Sutton, to what degree is there serious volume left for Ingram? And how many times is he going to be taken off the field for run plays? Probably pretty frequently. I have no shares, none. 60 drafts, no Ingram. Um, been a pretty hard fade for me this year. What do you think of Ingram, Ted? Any interest?
Not in the mid rounds, no, because you have to pay up a little bit more to get him. And if I'm punting tight end, I would prefer to take one of the rookies and then double tap a different guy. So Ingram has not been someone I've been targeting. I guess I have some pretty strong opinions on this one. I think that as fantasy managers, right, as people who play fantasy football, and based on what we've seen the past couple of years, if you've been bullish on rookies and been drafting rookies a lot, it's really paid off for you late in the end of the season. We've had some really special rookie classes come into the NFL the past couple of years. I guess I'm higher on J.K. Dobbins. Like just as a football player, I think that he is a startable player. Like I don't think he's just dust at this point. Like last year on the Chargers, he did well. Like I'm not saying that like he was an elite running back or anything, right? But he was able to be the primary like ball runner in that offense. So with RJ Harvey, right? I'm not all the way there that it's going to even be a 50-50 split. It would not shock me if J.K. Dobbins was the primary guy in this backfield and R.J. Harvey was change of pace. I don't really know, right? So I guess just I feel like there's wish casting going on with this R.J. Harvey thing. If I had to guess, I think he'd probably end up being the starter or the primary back eventually. But with the way Sean Payton likes to rotate backs, like I think it's possible that the Denver like backfield just turns into a gross mess like it was last year. So I don't know. That speech aside, I think he'd be fine. And then at least for this week, just to kind of see what happens, because RJ Harvey is like a fifth round pick, right? You're not spending a fifth round pick on a guy to not start him usually. Then for the Titans, I guess I really what this team comes down to me is Cam Ward and how good he is. If Cam Ward is like a CJ Stroud or a Jaden Daniels where he's NFL ready day one, I think Calvin Ridley's going to go to the moon. And the reason we have Okonkwo there is they just don't have that many guys on offense. I think their wide receiver two is Elik Onamayor. I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, but Chig Okonkwo, like at the very minimum, is an NFL player. And if Cam Ward is good and he's throwing the ball around and he looks good, like I feel like he's going to be startable a lot, especially on zero tight end rosters. There's a good chance he went undrafted just because of ADP, but we'll have him on the short list for a free agent ad if it looks good. Then last thing I'd like to share, there's a Bo Nix stained glass card. I don't ever want, I was not a believer at points last year. I kind of said I'm not sure if this guy's good. Now I have a premium Bo Nix card grading to PSA 9, so I'm rooting for the kid now. Turn it around. All right, next we got the 49ers going into Seattle to play the Seahawks. The 49ers have an implied team total of 23.5 points, and the Seahawks have an implied team total of 21 points. For the Niners, we're going to start Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle, and CMC. Then we're going to sit new addition to the team, Brian Robinson. Then for the Seahawks, we're going to start JSN and Kenneth Walker. And we're going to sit Cooper Kupp, Sam Darnold, and Zach Charbonnet. So we'll start with the Niners first because I'm a fan. The vibes this offseason have been really bad. The Niners have been dealing with a lot of injury. There's a lot of negative talk coming out from beat reporters in camp. That being said, there are some positive things to look at here for this 49ers team. One of which is Brock Purdy getting paid, getting a commitment from the 49ers organization. Whether or not he is going to pay off at the dollar amount they're paying him, we'll see. But I'm encouraged by what I've been seeing from the kid. I think he's really great. And then if we got completely healthy Christian McCaffrey this season. So, in my opinion, if the 49ers are going to make a serious playoff push, it's going to be off the back of a CMC season like there was 2 years ago, and Brock Purdy playing up to the contract he just signed. So there's that. George Kittle was one of the best tight ends last year. He's been one of the best tight ends his entire career, but it really popped in fantasy last year. I think like his red zone target share was really good. We're going to start him here with full confidence. And Ricky Pearsall, he's kind of the last man standing in the 49ers wide receiver room. The Niners are down to guys like Robbie Chosen and Tariq Owens at the wide receiver position because of injury. Brandon Ayuk will be coming later, but I like Ricky Pearsall, the player. I think he flashed at the end of last year. And then the only other guy we don't really have on here is Juwan Jennings. It looks like he's going to miss this game, and my guess is he goes on IR and misses a minimum of 4 games. Stay tuned for that. If he was playing, I maybe tricky decision him, is he's going to be dealing with the same thing Brandon Ayuk did last offseason, right, where he didn't basically participate in anything. I'd want to see at least Juwan look good before I feel confident in him in a starting lineup. Then for Seattle, Gino, longtime quarterback, is now out, and they brought Sam Darnold in. We'll see. I think this is a good opportunity for Sam Darnold if he's going to kind of have that career resurgence like we saw last year in Minnesota and have it be sustained. This is a pretty solid situation for him to be in, right? Cooper Kupp, and the Seahawks brought in Cooper Kupp. Really, that's like the primary guy they brought in. They drafted a couple O linemen to hopefully help their run blocking. But until we kind of see something from Cooper Kupp, I'm kind of assuming he's dust at this point. Could be wrong though. He's getting drafted in almost every room I've been in. So if he's on your bench, I'd just sit him this week and see how it looks. For Ken Walker and Charbonnet, this is an interesting one. There's been a lot of positive Ken Walker hype this offseason. There's a lot of people. I think Zal Vetri put out a video that said, I would bet my house on these 5 fantasy players, and Ken Walker was one of them. I'm not all the way there with I'm not one of the big Ken Walker bulls, but I think that this is kind of a make or break season for him, and I'm gonna kind of assume he's operating as the lead back until further notice. That's why Charbonnet is a sit. I really like Charbonnet, the player. I think he's one of the better backup running backs that's in the league. But I'm operating under the assumption, based on beat reports and based on just the macro reporting on the Seahawks, that it's Ken Walker's job until it isn't anymore. Thoughts on this one, Yanni?
So I've been seeing Jackson Smith and Jigba slide all the way to the 3-4 turn. That's obscene. I mean, you could make an argument he should be up there with like Lad McConkey, like based on what they did last year. If you're seeing him outside of the top 30, you should be smashing that in your drafts this week. Kenneth Walker the third. I mean, I think Sharps isn't even just one of the best backups in the league. Sharps might be like one of the 25 most talented running backs in the NFL. He does so great every time he gets the ball. I think it's really a compelling story. Does he chip away at more of that work? I believe the number is 8. I believe he's never seen more than 8 touches in a game where Kenneth Walker finished the game. Um, so I don't know. And what was the other interesting? Okay, since 2020, the number 2 running back in fantasy has been their offensive coordinator, their new offensive coordinator, Kubiak. It has been Gary Kubiak, not Gary Kubiak. What's the son's name?
Clint
Clay,
Kubiak.
Clint Kubiak. Clint Kubiak's running back has been the RB2 in fantasy and points per game since 2020. So it's like Christian McCaffrey, Clint Kubiak's running back, and I think Saquon Barkley is the third one. So he has produced a top three running back in points per game since 2020 for 5 years running. So whoever gets the job, I think, is a smash. We just don't know who that's going to be yet for sure. And then Ricky Pearsall, if you drafted him and you don't start him today, you should not have drafted him. If you drafted him and you don't start him this week, you should not have drafted him. I'm rolling him in my redraft league over Jameson Williams at Green Bay and Jerry Jeudy at Cincinnati. Speaking of JMO at Green Bay, Lions 22.5 going on the roads for what I thought was a dubious favorite in the Packers at 25. I know they're only getting the favorable side of the hook there with 2.5 points, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't. I guess the NFL has decided, and really I mean, what they added a first round wide receiver and they added Micah Parsons. Those are pretty big ads, and they had a tremendous season last year in terms of like battling through some really serious adversity to sort of make themselves a competitive team. You would assume if Jordan Love is healthy this year, and if you add a Micah Parsons and if Golden hits as a wide receiver one, they did do some things that really probably raised their ceiling. But I think they're just the NFL in general and fan bases and fantasy and everyone, we're a little too quick to call them like an elite team. This is not like a Philadelphia, in my opinion. Um, Whereas the Lions sort of have been. I know they got bounced from the playoffs early last year and they didn't look great against Jaden and the Skins, but I mean, Jaden also was just playing out of his mind at a level that we really rarely see in the NFL. I don't know. I think that's interesting that they're everyone's just decided they're the ones this year. Um, for the Lions, I know I just said I'm rolling Parasol over Jamison Williams, but that's more just because I think Parasol has like 10 target upside this week. The drumbeat out of camp has been incredible for Jamison Williams. I've made a point to grab him. He goes all the way at like pick 70 on Yahoo. I've just been smashing him there. I loved him in best ball too. He's like the dream best ball receiver, right? Who knows what percentage of Amon Ra's work he might be able to squirrel away. Isaac Tesla is sort of interesting. Who knows what kind of role he carves out for himself. Sam Laporta had some pretty interesting splits last year after he recovered from his preseason injuries. He had two different halves. If you go look at the two different halves of the season, I expect Sam Laporta to have a very strong season this year. So I'm starting everyone from the Lions, including Monty. Where you drafted him, you really kind of have to start him anyway. And then we're calling Jared Goff a tricky decision. I look personally, I think the game script's going to be right. I think the game should be high scoring. I'm aware it's one of the best defenses in the sport. I think he's fine on a two QB roster, depending on what your options are. I mean, I would rather start, for example, Jordan Love, who's is probably going to be rostered with Jared Goff if you wait until the end of draft slot. I would rather start Jordan Love right against the Lions, something like that. Trevor Lawrence against the Panthers, probably a little bit better of a start, but depending on your roster, I think Jared Goff's a fine start this week. Will he maybe get you 13 to 15 instead of 18 to 20? Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's the risk you run with QB2s. Um, Speaking of that, I actually think Jordan Love is more than startable this week. He had a surgery on his non-throwing hand, but in general, Ted's not going to agree with that, right? He's going to feel differently about this. So you can summarize that at the end. How you view Jordan Love right now and how you view his season last year really comes down to what degree do you think the multiple ankle and knee injuries were the cause of his issues? One of my favorite things that Ted says about him, though, is those don't cause you to make bad decisions, which which is true. His issues seem to be very much between the ears very often. But I do just wonder if you get mechanically a little screwed up, right? And you start maybe trying to do too much and you can't rely on your physical talent as much. Does that make you a little jumpy and a little weird? But he was a little jumpy and a little weird in his decision making before he got hurt. I don't know. Really interesting story. Me and Ted were talking about it in our draft and our video. My favorite thing this year is all the quarterback drama. There is genuine, real quarterback drama and storylines, and Jordan Love's one of them. Josh Jacobs, smash, smash. Get him in your lineup every week. Tucker Kraft, I think Tucker Kraft is a high floor with ceiling, tight end one, locked in, rest of the season. My most drafted tight end on underdog, I believe, or he might be tied with like a three-way tie for the most drafted. And then Matthew Golden, who is currently the ECR 38 wide receiver on the week, I think he should be a little bit higher. This is a secondary and a defense that was pretty trash. They lost Aaron Glenn. They've lost some pieces. Aiden Hutchinson, I believe he is going. He's not going to start on PUP, but he's not going to be 100% for a while. He doesn't look great when he's running around. It looks a little gimpy. I think Golden's a tremendous start this week. I would get him in your DFS rosters. He's going late enough in drafts where maybe you have some better options, but I think he's a great start. Romeo Dobbs, another guy on underdog that I smashed all summer. But I guess the debate, right, is who is the two wide receiver set of receivers that's going to come out. Wicks does not look like a serviceable NFL player. Christian Watson still on pup. And then Jaden Reed, stress fracture in his pinky toe. Still in a walking boot, I think. We haven't seen pictures of
He's
him
out.
out of a walking boot.
He's out.
Oh, he got it. Okay, okay. So he's out and back in practice. Um, I just don't know, man. I think Ted is probably right in that he believes it's going to be Romeo Dobbs out there with Golden, and that Romeo Dobbs and Golden take the two wide receiver sets. That has been their usage traditionally with Reed. I don't know why they would change that, especially with a fractured foot. Um, if Jaden Reed goes, and if he's cheap enough on DFS, I do like him. I do like him for a DraftKings roster, if he is priced correctly. Yeah, that was a lot in that game, but there were a lot of relevant players in there. If somehow Golden has a bad game, this is going to be the theme for the rookies throughout the first month of the season. If Golden has a bad game, send some offers for him. Try to get him off a scared owner. He's worth it.
Yeah, man. I guess my only real notes on this game are Jaden Reed is playing through a Jones fracture right now. He did just
Yeah.
get out of the boot like a couple of days ago, but he's gonna try and like just muscle through that all season. The off-season reports were that Jaden Reed was starting in two wide receiver sets, and Romeo Dobbs was on the trade block. Like, the Niners were all of the Niners like beat reporters and content creators were kind of writing articles or making podcasts about, oh, the Niners should send an offer for Romeo Dobbs because we're in serious need of wide receiver help. But with this Jaden Reed injury, it feels like it's going to be Romeo Dobbs starting in two wide receiver sets. I think he'll be an annoying presence, I guess, if you're a Matthew Golden believer. I just think that he'll be involved. And then I guess from the Packers side, I think that with this bullishness, trading for Micah Parsons to me means that you are saying that you're a Super Bowl caliber team that was one piece away, right? I think that so much of the Packers, like, and how far they go this year is just directly on Jordan Love's shoulders because he has not been good enough his entire career outside of a 7 game stretch. This Packers team under Jordan Love has never been anything more than like a pretty good team. So we kind of made this like giant leap here. And like the sports books are showing it too, right? 2.5 points over like the best team in the regular season last year, the Detroit Lions, or at least one of them up there with the Eagles. Like, we're giving them a ton of respect, and I think Jordan Love, he has the tools to do that. But like Yanni said, man, he's just an absolute arsonist sometimes. And like the Packers became one of the most rush-heavy teams in the NFL last year, near the tail end of the year when Jordan Love was just bad. They're like, hey, Josh Jacobs is our best player. Let's run him 25 times a game. So we'll see, man. I'm interested to see how this NFC North shakes out because there's four, in my opinion, really weird, like good but like hard to predict teams in there. It's going to be a dogfight every week, I think, when they're having their divisional matchups. All right, next one. The Texans are going to LA to play our friend of the program, Jimmy Garoppolo in the in the Rams. The Texans have an implied team total of 21 points here. And Jimmy and the Rams have an implied team total of 23 and a half. I guess just to clarify, Matt Stafford has been cleared to play. He's going to be starting for week one. But how long that lasts, I don't know. Jimmy's inevitable. For the Texans, we're going to start Nico Collins. We're going to tricky decision CJ Stroud and Nick Chubb. Welcome back, brother. And we're going to sit the rest of the fantasy options. Then for the Rams, we're going to start Kyron Williams, Puka Nakua, and Devontae Adams. Then we're going to sit Matt Stafford and Jimmy G. I threw Jimmy in there for the meme. But let's start with Houston first because I feel like there's less to talk about there. They still have a bad O line. Last year, one of their offensive line was one of the worst graded in the NFL. They haven't really done much to improve that. Joe Mixon is out for who knows how long. There's been very mixed reports on that. There's been some reports that might be 4 weeks. I've seen that they're going to revisit after 4 weeks. I've seen people saying he's not going to play all year. I have no idea, but if Joe Mixon cannot play football this year, I think this entire Texans team, like, the best they could be as a wild card team. I don't think they'd be able to do anything just because the lack of weapons, right? So we're going to call Nick Chubb a tricky decision here because he should be the starter here. The reports are Nick Chubb is going to be the bell cow, whatever you want to, whatever that means to the Texans, but he's going to be the primary back. So even with a bionic knee, he might be able to fall into the end zone against a Rams team that finished 24th against the rush last year. CJ, we're tricky decisioning him just kind of because everything around him on offense has fallen apart, right? With the Tank Dell injury, with the Joe Mixon injury, with the bad line, he just doesn't have that much help outside of Nico. So I wouldn't go anything more than a tricky decision for him. Then for the Rams, I think that all year, I know we joke about Jimmy on this channel all the time. We've been doing it for the entire time since day one of this channel. We have been a Jimmy Garoppolo meme channel, second most to fantasy football. But with the Matt Stafford back issue, like I think that the Rams are live to lose Matt Stafford for the season on any given play. At any given play, just like that, I think Matt Stafford could be out. And I know like you could say that about any player, right? If they tear their ACL or whatever. I don't think it's going to take that much to knock him out. So the Rams are going to be hoping that Stafford can stay healthy all year. And I think that like what the fantasy landscape is for this Rams like is so different between what Stafford can provide and what Jimmy can provide. I feel the best about Puka on this Rams team if Jimmy ends up getting in. Jimmy, technically speaking, is one of the better backups in the league. I say that reluctantly, but like it just kind of is what it is at this point. Like, what is that? Maybe quarterback 40 in the NFL or something like that, right? So he's at least competent enough, I think, to be able to get Puka the ball with the massive target share that he had last year, right? I just feel like he would be able to survive more than a Kyron or Devonte Adams with Jimmy in there. But for now, when it's Stafford, I think Kyron, Puka, and Devonte are just gonna be like the solid through you see almost every week from us. That's what I got on the game. Did I miss anything, Yanni?
There's some interest in the Texans backfield. We'll see if anyone emerges there. I doubt it, but I have some Nick Chubb shares. I have some Nick Chubb shares heading
They
into the year.
desperately need Joe Mixon, dude. Like
Mm,
I'm sad. I don't like it when like the NFL feels like there aren't as many teams that can do something, right?
yep.
And is
Yep.
like hyperbolic and weird as it is, I feel like Joe Mixon, like that he's a necessary piece, even at like age 29, for the Texans to be a
Yeah.
serious team.
Dude, they've made playoff run. Like people trashed them last year, whatever. They've made playoff runs every year with CJ Stroud. Like it would be sad to me if, a young up and coming dude who goes in there and like dukes it out, even though they lose. He goes in there and dukes it out with Lamar in the postseason in a snowy Baltimore. And then doesn't remember we watched didn't we watch that one in the Niners Stadium? I think we did.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Anyway, Ravens at Bills. Just a fun little side note. I've been snagging the Bills DST, and it's really horrible because you don't want to roster two DSTs this time of year. I don't want to drop a thing, and they have a dynamite schedule for the month after this. So, like, I've decided on 3 or 4 rosters. I'm just eating this week against the Ravens. I will eat the 4 points expected. It's not great. It is not an ideal start, but their defense has a really good schedule after this. If you maybe have someone you're questionable about on your roster, or you're throwing someone on IR, take a look at the Bills DST and see if they're on the wire. But the Ravens at the Bills with an implied team total of 25.5, coming back with the Bills with an implied team total of 27. This is the highest projected game of the week by Vegas. Um, for the Ravens, look, man, not a whole lot's moved. They're the best offense in the NFL. They have the best combination of rushing and passing. Lamar is one of the great weapons in the history of the sport. Is he always the most traditional quarterback? Maybe not, but he's improved so much as a passer too. I mean, I'm such a fan of watching him play, dude. It makes me genuinely happy. And like, I've never been an elite quarterback drafter. And this year I've decided, the data has come in that it's pretty clear. You give yourself a decided edge when you do. So like, I actually have pretty heavy bags on Lamar and Josh Allen this season. I'm pretty excited. I don't think I've ever rostered Lamar before, ever. So like I think I have two or three redraft rosters with him. We're gonna go ahead and start Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry. Now, two of those names you're never gonna see move all year: Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry. Mark Andrews had a really rough year last year, but he was coming off a tightrope surgery. He got in a car crash. He didn't look totally healthy to me. Isaiah Likely's now dealing with health issues. He's going like as late as around pick 100 in a lot of drafts as cross-site ADP, cross-platform ADP. I don't know, man. I know it's a little risky, and I know that the touchdown share can drop off. And I know Lamar threw mid 40s touchdowns, and he was like, I think he had double-digit touchdowns last year. I get it. It's all true. I just still think in the tight end landscape, you're still getting one of the most reliable weapons and connections in the sport attached to one of the best offenses. I mean, dude, the Ravens might be one of the best offenses in the history of the sport this year. We just don't know, but it's certainly within their range of outcomes. I think I think Mark Andrews is going to have a fine season. If he doesn't, we'll pull him off the start list. Probably the most controversial name here, and then just real quick to get out of the way, Rashad Bateman, DFS dart throw, especially in the single game slate. If you want to go for like a feisty captain, a spicy captain pick, Rashad Bateman, I like that. Um, Zay Flowers is sort of a weird one. I did not want any shares coming into the year. I really didn't. I'm just not the biggest Zay Flowers guy in both underdog and redraft. He is now slid all the way up. I don't know if it's like a content creator thing. I don't know if it's that other guys are flying up, like the Emeka Egbukas of the world, the Travis Hunters of the world, the Ricky Parasols, Romo Dunzeys. Maybe it's that those guys are getting pulled up. I'm not sure, but I have now been twice with a Lamar Jackson roster in a redraft paid gold level or platinum level Yahoo league. I've had Lamar Jackson or I've had Zay Flowers fall to the seventh, like the sixth, seventh turn where I'm getting him at like pick 70. I got him in underdog a few times at like almost pick 70. I think that's way too far for a Zay Flowers is entering his third season in the NFL. He's flashed like elite NFL talent. I truly do believe he has that in spades. I was a big, big fan of his out of college and for the last 2 years. I think there's a compelling case you could say about just if he didn't pop last year when Lamar had an MVP caliber season, when is he going to pop? Maybe. Is he destined to be like a two touchdown, 900-yard between the 20s guy for the rest of his career? Maybe. But he's developed leaps and bounds the last 2 years. He's going into his third year, which is usually the popping year for wide receivers. And I just think at the price he's going, you have to take those hacks. Would I take him in the fifth round, even over guys like Calvin Ridley and Cortland Sutton? I actually no, I prefer Calvin Ridley. I prefer Cortland Sutton. Yeah, there are wide receivers in that range that maybe are lower in ECR ADP that I prefer over Flowers. So I'm even pretty bearish, but like it's gotten too far. Um, and I think if you get him at the 6, 7 turn as your wide receiver, 3 or 4 or 5, even at that range, I think you're doing excellent roster construction. So, and I would roll him. I would roll him this week. And I just wonder, dude. I wonder, is this the year that he really pops? Like, does Mark Andrews fall off a little bit and he absorbs some of that touchdown share, touchdown equity in the offense? Maybe. Does Derrick Henry get hurt this year and they have to pass a ton? He's old, one of the highest mileage backs in the history of the NFL. I just think there are a lot of paths to success for Zay Flowers. Um, for the Bills, I'm actually higher on James Cook than market too. I know it's a tough matchup, but where you took him in this year, you are not benching him under any circumstance, or I couldn't see any circumstances where you're benching him. Josh Allen, come on. Keon Coleman, sort of tricky decision. Vegas loves Keon Coleman this year with his yardage totals, with his touchdown totals. Vegas seems to think this is the locked and loaded wide receiver one for Josh Allen this year. I think the Bills think so too. They have been very glowing almost in how they talk about him. I know kind of the problem that's been discussed there is all three of their best receivers, and Kincaid, Coleman, and Shakir, all are slot guys. And so that's sort of the issue is all of those guys want to play the slot, but Coleman generated explosives from outside the numbers, outside the hash marks last year. He had a really good yards per reception. A few of those were broken plays, but I don't know, dude. If he slides into a full-time role, like Keon Coleman is one of those guys that I'm trying to start grabbing as my wide receiver 5. I have three drafts left. I'm going to see if I can start snagging him as that wide receiver 5. I think that's a sneaky upside play. This week, I don't think you're going to start him in redraft, but I don't know. Just keep an eye on Keon. I like Keon. And then Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, who just returned to practice, Joshua Palmer. Much more DFS plays for Palmer there. Shakir, you're not going to start because he's been out for weeks now with a high ankle, and really his explosiveness might be sapped, man, with those high ankles. Those are silent killers for your fantasy season. Um, Dalton Kincaid, who I believe is from Zay Flowers' draft class. This is his third year. A lot of people are projecting that third year leap that happens for receivers. He drew, when running routes last year, drew over a 30% target share. So it's just a question of does he get to run more routes? Does the target share stay there? And can he convert into the kind of player that can do more with him? I'm noticing he's going undrafted in a lot of the drafts I'm doing. These are 12-team paid leagues. I don't know. Depends what you have on your bench, but it wouldn't be the worst thing. I'm holding him for a week or two on a couple teams, like where I took a Loveland, for example, and I'm just gonna kind of wait and see where it pans out and cut him in a week or two if nothing happens. But keep an eye on it, but don't start him now. You should be able to find better options even in a zero tight end build.
Yeah, my only two comments on this game, other than I think this should be excellent television and one of the games of the week to
Yeah.
actually watch, is number
Oh
one,
yeah.
totally agree with you. I think Zay Flowers is just getting pushed way too far down drafts, and I feel like he's a much better NFL player than he's been a fantasy asset so far.
Yeah.
Like as an NFL player, I have no doubt he's a great player. I think that this may be the year that you see it pay off in the fantasy scoreboard. And then for the Bills, man, I am over the moon excited about James Cook this year. I really, really love this player. Last year, he got in the end zone, I think it was 16 or 18 times. Like, by far the most, other than maybe Derrick Henry, James Cook must have, like, he probably had the most rushing touchdowns other than that, right? And he just got broken off for one of the highest running back contracts, like, in the league. Last year, his usage was not great. It was almost like a rotation with Ray Davis and I forgot who the other guy was, but it was like a three-man rotation where James Cook was the A side. I don't think you pay a running back that kind of money if you just want him to have the usage be the same as it was last year, right? So I think that if the usage leans more towards like a bell cow, like a true bell cow role for James Cook in the Buffalo Bills offense with Josh Allen, like I think top five running back this year is it's on the board. I'm not saying it's likely, but I think that there's a good chance that come this time next year, James Cook is a first round guy that we see going in fantasy drafts.
Dude, there's a world where like Joshua Palmer, I actually like Joshua Palmer. I think he's like an underrated just support piece, like not a ball or anything, but just a good supportive player. There's a world where Keon Coleman does not take the second year leap, where Khalil Shakir's ankle actually does sap him of explosive. Dude, it is incredibly bearish for your year outlook to have a high ankle bad enough to keep you out for a month before the season. That is not good. That's what destroyed Austin Eckler's last year in LA. And then Dalton Kincaid, I mean, I would say it's 50-50 at best that he pops. Last year was incredibly disappointing from him. There's a world where James Cook is this team's most effective receiver this year. Can you imagine if James Cook becomes the most effective receiver on the Bills? Now I know Ty Johnson actually led all running backs in air yards last year. Their third down back. So this is a team that's shown an incredible willingness to throw to the running back. They threw to James Cook plenty. They just paid him. Like, dude, there's a world. There's a world where this is like 60 reception James Cook with Josh Allen. It's really interesting.
And you're getting him for a great price right now because of the holdout, right? Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, he's not signed yet." I don't know. Now he's signed and they broke him off. Whew.
Yeah. Dude, you're paying last year's price. His price has not moved. I've been drafting him where I was drafting him last year at like 33 to 40. It's like I'm going. Hmm.
All right, last one of the week. Is it two Monday night games for week one, Yanni, or is this the only Monday nighter?
I would guess that they are doing the Bills Ravens for Sunday night. I don't remember the times, but I that is almost certainly the Sunday night game.
All right. At any rate, last game of the week, we got the Vikings going into Soldier Field to play the Bears. I think that we're going to find out a lot about both of these teams because there's a lot of question marks to me. The Vikings have an implied team total of 22 and a half points, and the Bears have an implied team total of 21 points. For the Vikings, we're going to start Justin Jefferson, Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson, and Jordan Mason is actually making it on the start list. Miss you, buddy. You were a great Niner. And then we're going to tricky decision, second year, but effectively a rookie quarterback in JJ McCarthy. And for the Bears, we're professional fantasy football analysts, and we're going to tell you the entire roster is just a tricky decision. And I guess I'll just start there because there is so much that's changed about this Bears team that I don't know what to make of it. I truly don't. Yanni, do you know what to make of this team? Do you know what's going to happen with the Bears in any way, shape, or form?
No,
Yeah,
no
no,
one does. Anyone who pretends like they do and then they're gonna victory lap that they knew all along, they just got lucky and guessed right. That's all
yeah,
that happened.
yeah. So we got Ben Johnson, one of the is he like one of the most like hyped like head coach hires there's been? Like I can't remember an offensive coordinator that was getting more buzz than Ben Johnson and the job he did in Detroit. And like we've been talking for 2 years now about Ben Johnson being the head coach, and he took over the Bears and Caleb Williams, who was supposed to be a generational quarterback prospect. So there's stuff to be optimistic about here. The Bears have just a bevy of talent everywhere. Like there is no shortage of weapons whatsoever. They have DJ Moore. They have Roma Dunze. I think he went 12 last year. So you have two like premium wide receiving options. They just drafted Colston Loveland with the top I think 10 pick I think this year. They have DeAndre Swift who despite being unimpressive last year, his best years were in Detroit with Ben Johnson. The Bears got Caleb Williams, a couple more linemen, because the Bears' offensive line was so bad last year. By all accounts, and I'm going to quote my friend Yanni here, this is not a dumpy unit by any means. I don't think you can ask for any more for for an offense, right? I think this has potential to be the best Bears offense we've seen in a really long time, probably since like Jay Cutler, Brandon Marshall. But it all lays on Caleb Williams, man, and what you think of the player and if he pans out. There's been super concerning videos of training camp. I know I said earlier that training camp doesn't matter that much. So I kind of lean that it doesn't matter, but some of the stuff I've seen on camera is pretty shocking. Ben Johnson has like kind of talked negatively about like a lot of his players. It's hard to kind of parse through how much of that is him trying to be a Dan Campbell culture setter and how much of that is like legitimate disappointment. Maybe he's just like the craziest perfectionist in the world and is unhappy with like guys like Luther Burden and stuff. I don't know. I think that based on like your ADPs, right? Like DJ Moore is going in the fifth round. You probably can't sit him unless you drafted like a very deep bench, I guess. But like if you have the opportunity, I would wait to see 1 week, right? Roman Dunze is like a seventh, eighth round guy. Like I wouldn't force him into your lineup here. Swift is like the only one I would feel pretty. Swift is the only guy I feel like I know what's happening here with what he's going to be in this offense, but he's going up against a Vikings team that was very good against the rush last year, has Brian Flores, and added even more pieces to the defense. So I would just hold on. Hopefully we have some better information for you on this team and our takes start to like solidify a little bit week 2. Then for the Vikings, there's this roster to me, like I don't know if this is like a crazy take. And I know I faded this team so much last year. Every single week on the gambling show, I would give you reasons to bet against the Vikings, and I just ate shit over and over and over and over again. And at a certain point, I just had to call it like I saw it. I was like, listen, man, this is a pretty good roster. This is a pretty good roster. You have the elite wide receiver. You have guys in the backfield in Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. Neither of them are elite, but you don't necessarily need like a Saquon Barkley to run an offense effectively. TJ Hawkins is big good, and Kevin O'Connell knows what the fuck he's doing when we're talking about an offensive coaching. This to me, the Vikings season is going to be made or broken on the back of JJ McCarthy. They got rid of Sam Darnold for this guy. I remember last season, everyone was telling me Sam Darnold was back. It was one of the great comeback stories of all time. He finishes the season a little rocky. They ship him off because they want to see JJ McCarthy. There's a chance if JJ is good, like and he's like let's say JJ McCarthy is Brock Purdy level or better, like day one. I think this Vikings team is live to win the entire NFC with how good their defense is, and I've kind of given up the battle on their defense being bad. I think it's a good defense, and with that offense, if they have a great quarterback, I think they can make a run. I know they never have. Vikings never won a Super Bowl, but I think this might actually be the year. And if JJ sucks, like the Vikings could be last in the division with how much of a shark tank it is. I really don't know. I don't think anyone in their right mind knows. So I would wait to see, especially against the Bears defense that was pretty solid against the pass last year. What do you think, Yanni? Anything to add?
No, I've been treating it like I prefer Romo Dunze at cost to DJ Moore. DJ Moore has slid almost to the seventh round in a few drafts I'm in, and at that point, I'll take the shot on DJ Moore. But yeah, I prefer Romo Dunze to DJ Moore. I think Rome will emerge as their wide receiver one. If I recall correctly, he was actually the ninth overall pick, and so was Loveland. Um, And then the only strong conviction, I'll put it out there so it's on video. Maybe it'll make an interesting short one day. The only strong conviction about the Bears I have this year is there is one guy who does something that no one else there does or can do, and that is Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland is a well above average run blocker, contrary to popular opinion. He lines up in line at tight end. He can line up in the slot. He could line up outside and do fades if you wanted to in the goal line. His college tape is riddled with him cooking man coverage, cooking linebackers and safeties 5 yards off the line of scrimmage or short or within 10 yards and in breaking routes. I This was the guy who was the first pick in the top 10 of the most expensive first head coaching contract ever given out in the history of the sport. That head coaching contract was given out to a man who had previously piloted a rookie tight end to a tight end #1 overall season and one of the highest rates correlated with championships in fantasy in Sam Laporta 2 years ago. He shipped off TJ Hawkinson, who was a top 5 tight end because he knew what he wanted and had in Sam Laporta, developed him into it within a few months, and rolled it out as a tight end 1 as a rookie. Colston Loveland has a way better pedigree and a way better profile, and he's way more skilled, both physically talented and just talented with ball skills than Laporta is. He's a better player than Laporta, I think. I know he's got to deal with Komet. I know there's other pass catchers there, but there is one guy that is a one of one in that scheme, and that is Colston Loveland, in my opinion. So I drafted him heavily on underdog. I've drafted him heavily in redraft. I'm going to continue to draft him. Um, I think Colston Loveland has a great year this year. I think he develops into Caleb's safety blanket.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be some value in the Bears here going forward. It's just what it looks like, right? Like I'm
Someone,
excited for this game,
yeah,
really.
dude, someone, whether you're a DJ Moore, a Romo Dunze, a Colston Loveland, or a DeAndre Swift drafter, or a Luther Burden drafter, someone got an insane value. In every one of your rooms, someone absolutely hit a home run. We just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
So
All right, that's going to do it for us. We're happy to be back. If you made it through the whole video, I know it was a long one, but 7 months of pent up podcasting needs that were just filled tonight. Please like, subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Question of the day for the audience: what do you guys think of the new layout? I mean, I'm pretty bush league when it comes to like Photoshop and stuff, but I threw something together. I felt like it was more entertaining than just reading off a blank white slide. But I don't know. Do you guys prefer to see the text and the players the entire time? Do you just skip through to the timestamps and get what you need really quick? Let us know. Is like that's the valuable type of feedback that like you just don't get very much.
yep.
And yeah, we'll catch you guys for the gambling episode.
Thanks, guys. Good luck this year.